Today, guys, I want to really talk to you about something very specific. If you were at the last masterclass that I taught last year, it was very, very broad, and I told you guys about how I was going to show you how to acquire a property on a sub-2 and turn it into an Airbnb. And so now I want to give you guys some real tools and some real individual step-by-step things that you guys can do for not only Airbnb, but also if you're a real estate agent and you guys have any listings, taking control of your photos is super important, okay? So today, like I said, the food is sponsored by Satol. Eric over here has that restaurant, and he's been running and operating that for the past year now. It's down the street off of Low. And Bonda on Sundays. Don't forget Bonda on Sundays. Lisa provides this wonderful, great space for us to kind of gather together and kind of have this event once a month, the second Tuesday of every month. She's a managing broker of the international team. She has 12 languages now? How many? 10 languages now to suit all the needs. A picture is worth 1,000 bookings. This masterclass tonight, I'm going to repeat a lot of things over and over and over so I could just drill it in your guys' head, okay? And all of that is part of why that one picture is worth 1,000 bookings, okay? The agenda tonight, we'll be starting off with a brief overview of the importance of photos, okay? Photos are super important for no matter what type of marketing that you're doing. If it's going to be Airbnb, you're listing a property, if you're doing a midterm rental, and if you're also marketing yourself. We're also going to go over the 4 essential types of Airbnb photos, staging and design, and making sure we have that prep work before the photos come in. And then choosing that moneymaker, that hero photo, that cover photo, that profile photo, that one that's really going to grab the attention of whatever guest you're looking for. And also how to hire and coach your photographer. I know that a lot of times people look at this subject and they think that, well, that's why I hire someone to do it, okay? And as a business owner and operator, you need to know just enough to get yourself in trouble in every area of your business. And if you don't do that, then you're not minding your own business, okay? And so this is not for you to be the best photographer. This is for you to know how to hire and fire the best photographer and coach them in the right direction. Not every photographer knows how to do exactly Airbnb the way you want to do it, especially in a new market like this. We're in a rising, new section of the industry with short-term rentals. And so it's not as if photographers have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. And these types of photos that we're looking to gather are a lot different in small areas than your typical listing real estate photo that we'll be going over today. So a quick little timeline on why I have the ability to kind of help you guys out and speak on this subject and teach this masterclass. I started my wholesaling business in 2015. I opened up my first Airbnb in 2017. That property was the first property I did not design, and it was the first property that I did not take control of my photos. And those photos came out looking like it was a listing for a property that someone was going to come by and live in. It had nothing to do with an experience. It had nothing to do with people gathering together and making unique experiences and memories. And so from that first one, I realized I was doing a lot of things wrong, and I took control over the design period, and I took control over the photography. In 2019, I opened up my first Airbnb. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that, guys. I opened up my 2017. I opened up my first Airbnb. 2019, I opened up several more Airbnbs. I had a time period where I was opening up at one Airbnb every 2 months. I was focusing on apartment complexes in downtown Denver. They're really cheap to open up, so I was able to move really quickly. I had the same type of guest I was looking for, which was a traveling business traveler. And I also was able to copy and paste that because I had the same layout, same designs. So I was kind of running it similar to a hotel but putting my own special sauce on it. So I was able to scale very, very quickly. I opened up, I was doing about, in 2019, I was doing over $350,000 in revenue off of 7 properties, all located mostly in the same building. There's about 5 of them in the same building. And in 2021, I started opening up properties in Albuquerque. The laws got real tight out here in Denver. They didn't like me very much, and I had to surrender a lot of licenses over. And I took off to Albuquerque. Well, I went to Grand Junction, opened up one there, went down to Albuquerque and opened up a few down there. I was the first 420 friendly Airbnb in Albuquerque. My partner Shaq that you guys met earlier, him and I came together and we opened up a great duplex that you guys will see photos of in here. I'll use as examples. That was a 420 friendly Airbnb. So I copy and pasted that in Albuquerque. And then this past summer, I was able to take that full circle and open up the largest 420 Airbnb in Albuquerque. That is a duplex that comes from the same concept that me and Shaq did in Arvada 4 years prior. That is actually kind of getting a lot of traction. And I'm seeing a lot more people in Denver do that as well, which is great because now it gives more diversity for people to host large events and large families. This is the duplex down in Albuquerque. And so I'll be teaching things, but I'll also be highlighting the photos and pointing things out in the photos that are usually going to make sense about whatever I'm talking about. I have a question for everybody. Does everybody know what an asset is? Can someone tell me what an asset is? Say that again?
Something that adds value to your money and to you.
Yes, something that adds value. Does anybody, who here has an Airbnb that's already operating or you have operated one in the past? Perfect. Do you know what your biggest asset is in your Airbnb business?
3 bedrooms.
Like what is, if you have an Airbnb business, like one property is a business, and you have, what's the biggest asset? You could have a hot tub, you could have, it's a business. You have lots of things. Is it you? Like what is it, right?
Hospitality.
Hospitality is great. Hospitality is a great asset to have. Hunter?
I think it's appreciation, depreciation, cash flow, and equity.
Those are assets, and those are great assets. The depreciation, when I'm talking about like the ROI of a asset, your depreciation and all those other things you mentioned come from an ROI based off, because I know you're a numbers guy, of how much you purchased it for, right? So if you purchase a hot tub for $9,000, right? That's an asset to your business, right? If you had a trucking company, a truck would be an asset. How much money is that truck making you? How much money is that hot tub making you? What's the ROI on that you spent on that individual asset for your business, right? And I believe that the biggest asset that you have in your Airbnb is your photos. Your photos are going to only cost you less than $1,000. And the amount of extra income, the amount of money that you can make on good photos compared to bad photos on the exact same property with the same hospitality, the same depreciation, the same cash flow, okay, is something that I can't even quantify, because I've watched me change somebody's listing by just their photos, and it's the same operator, same asset, same location, everything, and I've watched their income grow by 65% with just doing that. So to me, your hospitality doesn't mean anything if no one actually books it, right? And so if you don't if nobody books it, no cash flow, okay? So I really want to get home why this class is so important, and that a lot of times it's overlooked. People will spend hours looking at the properties and figuring out the design and do everything, and then when they want to place that product to the marketplace, they're giving it a terrible representation. This is a property I have in Grand Junction, also a 420 friendly Airbnb. Photos are the first line of defense, I call it, when it comes to marketing. Okay, because we live in an Instagrammable world. That means that our eyes are doing everything. We are intaking information so fast, and we do not want to read. We do not want to, do any homework. We are making all of our judgments off of photos, okay? And so when we are able to place a photo like this one, you want to capture the eye as fast as possible, okay? And I'm going to teach you today how to do that with different lighting, different angles, different colors, so that we can make sure that we're grabbing that attention. Because when someone goes on Airbnb, they are scrolling and fighting. Everyone's fighting for that attention and for that booking, okay? So this is the Arvada property, the backyard of the Arvada property of me and Shaq's. The photo gallery is, if a photo gallery is so important before anybody even gets to, this is a wonderful, comfortable place. It has this, it has that. The photos is everything. And I'm going to keep repeating it and drilling it into everyone's head so everyone starts paying attention to that, and they have the understanding that, hey, now this is how I purchase properties, right? This is how I purchase items. When you're talking about a drink, when you're talking about going to a restaurant and looking at the menu, okay? Pictures are the key. The mindset, okay? The mindset is super important, and that's what I was going over, is that the mindset is super important, because if you don't change your mindset on how important the photos are, you're not going to be able to set the property up to capture the right client and the right guest that you're looking for, okay? So, and everybody goes, well, people have been taking photos of properties forever. Why do I need to become an expert in that and take control of that part of my business, okay? And the reason for that is because your typical photographer knows how to take amazing real estate photos, okay? And what those photos are saying to people is they're trying to help that customer imagine buying that property and living in that property, okay? And they do a great job of that, and people and great photographers all over the country and the world can do that, and it's taught all over the place. Airbnb photography, I think, is overlooked, because that is going to be a specialty of showing not somebody living there or wanting to live there and spending their time there permanently. It's how do you create an experience? How do we translate that experience through pictures, okay? Because when you're designing an Airbnb, you got to do fun stuff, because no one's going to live there permanently. People are looking there for a temporary experience, okay? And so if you guys look at these two slides, this is the duplex in Albuquerque. These are actually the photos from the listing when I purchased it, okay? So if you look at these photos, this is a lot plainer, and it's a very blank canvas, okay? Real estate photos I call blank canvas, and they are going to get people to be able to draw and create their own art over it. Whereas in the photos for a short-term rental or an Airbnb, the picture's already there. And now, how do you get that person imagining them in that experience and in that piece of art already? And so another super important thing that I'm going to drill into everybody's head today in this masterclass is that if they don't see it, it does not exist, okay? This is not only to capture your pictures are not only to capture the right person and the right guest that you're looking for, but it's also to make your life easier and answer all the stupid questions that they have. And if you're an operator, you've seen them before, and they're not stupid questions. You're a stupid operator. If you get asked the same question over and over and over, that's your fault, because you don't have it in a photo, you don't have it in a title. I know I have it in my bio, I have it at the bottom, it's over here. It doesn't matter. If it's not in a photo, it doesn't exist. So if you're tired of getting the same question over and over, where the hair, is there a hair dryer? Is this happening there? Is there a blender? Is there a rice maker? All those things, okay? If it's not in a photo, it doesn't exist. So part of this, when we go through the checklist that you guys all received, you'll see, wow, this is a huge checklist for a photo shoot, for an Airbnb, and your photographer will probably trip out the first time that you show them that. But like I said, the ROI on your photography is super, super high. It is important to visually tell a story, okay? You are creating an experience, and with that experience comes the storytelling, okay? And so you want to give somebody a full the full aspect of what your property looks like and let them feel it, right? If you guys ever done a Matterport before, like buying real estate, you guys ever seen those Matterports and you guys can go through them? How do you create that through photos without that technology, okay? And so a lot of times it's not just photographing the room, it's also photographing the experience. So in here, you can see that there's, the top photo is gonna be kind of your basic, like this is the garage, this is the movie theater room. And then you're gonna see the door shut in the closet, okay? And then the next photo, you're gonna see the closet opened, okay? With red light kind of drawing you in there. And then the next photo you're gonna see in there is gonna be inside of that closet, okay? So what I'm able to tell the story of this speakeasy type of room that I have located in the movie theater room, okay? And so I can say that in the paragraph, but no one's gonna get that to the bio. People wanna see it. Ensuring that every detail is captured. This is not only important to capture the right guest, but it's also important for operations, okay? If you wanna scale your Airbnb business, if you wanna scale any type of short-term rental business, or you wanna be a remote operator and be able to operate that short-term rental without a management company from a distance, or you don't wanna have to show up, then your photo shoot is super important for operations. I'm talking shots of your paint color. I'm talking about shots of the details so that when you go back and say, what blender did I use? If you don't already have an inventory list, right? How do you get that replaced? So there's gonna be those detailed shots that are going to invoke emotion, such as this one right here. This is a shot from my Grand Junction property. It's close to a vineyard. I have a wine bar in there, and I host a lot of bachelorette parties and wineries for the wineries, and also a country concert. Country Jam is up there as well. So I went with a wine theme for the kitchen. And so these details are going to evoke emotion in the guest that I'm looking for. And that's going to probably be a female who likes to drink wine and eat charcuterie boards, if I pronounce that right. I usually call them something else, but. The importance of scroll stopping images, okay? Scroll stopping images, we all know, are super important because that's all we're doing all day. And through Airbnb, people are going to be doing the same thing. And so you're going to be having all that competition. And how do they stop on yours? Because your bio, your hospitality, all those other great things mean nothing unless they actually book your property. And to do that, you have to capture their attention, okay? This is a photo that I actually took on my iPhone. We paid about $400 for photos for the Arvada property. And this was the money-making photo I took with my iPhone. Every photo shoot got better and better and better because I kept learning and adding to that repertoire and trying to make sure that I had the right tools for photographers to get what I wanted out of it. The reason that this photo I think did so well is because it's red, okay? So what I needed to do is I needed to figure out how do I capture all the attention. And you could have the best, most beautiful property, but if every property in that area is the same, and it's just, we kind of get blinded to the same color schemes, the grays, the really bright HDR photos, right? And so what I was able to do was I was able to stop that scrolling pattern with a pattern interrupting by having the whole picture being red. You can do this multiple ways. You can do a collage photo. My guy Shaq is very known for that. He will put 4 photos into one photo, okay? So try to figure out how can you get someone to stop scrolling and then click on your listing. To do that, you want to review the local listings, right? If everybody has red photos, maybe now you go back to a basic one, an HDR one, or a green photo, or something different, right? If everybody has pictures of their kitchen, and then maybe you do a front room. If everyone has one thing, try and figure out how to stop that pattern recognition with that hero photo and being that first one, okay? You want to identify your wants and your don't wants. If you, like I said, whatever you don't want that photo to be like, I don't want it to be the typical backyard because everybody in my area is going up to the same client and the backyards are always beautiful and all those things. How do you make it to where I don't want that, right? You still have that photo in your album, but maybe it's not that hero photo. who is your ideal guest, right? We don't want to put photos out there to attract the wrong guest, okay? You're not gonna put these neon lights, and you're not gonna put this fun, cool time of like wine glasses or 420 friendly and marijuana accessories. If you don't want people smoking in there, if you don't want people having fun, and you have crappy neighbors, and you're trying to have a noise, everybody have to keep the noise down by 8 p.m., right? So you don't want to then have a headache on the back end by attracting the wrong guest. So what does your guest find, your ideal guest find important, and how can I highlight that? These properties are not photographed the same way my first 6 were, because I was looking for a business traveler, okay? There was no neon lights. There was no wine glasses being set out. Well, actually there was a few, but it was a lot of coffee. It was a lot of tea, okay? Because I was looking for a specific type of guest, and your photos will help you do that. There's 4 essential types of Airbnb photos that we're gonna go over today, okay? And we wanna make sure we break these down so that you can tell your photographer what exactly you're looking for, okay? And your layout and design photos are gonna be very, very simple, okay? They're just like your real estate photos. They're gonna show the lay of the land, and they're gonna show what's in your property, and they're gonna show you, give a person a good feel of the property, okay? The second style is going to be functionality and factual. Functionality is, what is the function of something, right? Right here in this photo, we have a couch turned out into a full queen bed, okay? The reason that's important is because people want to see, is that actually going to work when I get there? It builds that confidence, right? Does it come with sheets? Does it come with pillows? Is it actually a queen size, or is he just kind of messed up his listing, right? So you want to make sure that you photograph things that to you don't maybe seem appealing, right? This is a front room and it's folded out into a bed. It might not be the most appealing photo for the front room, but I do have another photo with it as a couch, right? So we're looking for functionality and things that are factual. Like I said, if it's not in a photograph, it doesn't exist. The vibe and experience photos, those are gonna be the fun ones, guys. These are the ones that you post on Instagram. These are the ones that get you to book, okay? This is how do you create the vibe. I love doing this with twilight photos at nighttime when I have that. I love using neon lights. Anything that gets movement, when you're able to get the hot tub moving, or you're able to get any motion inside of photography, that really helps as well. And you're setting that vibe and that standard of what their experience is when they get there. Detailed and accent shots. Okay, detailed and accent shots are gonna just be strictly to provoke emotion or to highlight a detail of a property or a function of something, right? I have a movie theater room that has Pokemon cards inside the epoxy floors. You cannot see that detail from a landscape view. You have to shoot a detailed shot, okay? A lot of times we're gonna be using props for those as well. I love using wine. If you see on the checklist, rosé is my favorite wine to photography with. I think it looks very elegant, and it gives a little bit of color, especially when you don't have that color in that room or on that patio. Why do we need a shot list? Well, when you want something to be important, you're gonna make sure you have a checklist and you're gonna do things the right way, okay? And like I said, since I think this is the biggest asset that has the biggest ROI in your Airbnb business, you have to have that checklist, because it's really easy to get caught in the moment of that photo shoot and forget what you really, really need out of there, right? And then you're paying that photographer to come back in. These are some detailed shots. This is a picture window that I have in my Grand Junction property that doesn't fit any of those 3 categories. You know, it doesn't give anything factual. It doesn't give anything the lay of the land of the property. You know, it really doesn't show any of those 3 items. But this is that detailed shot that's going to invoke emotion and say, "Wow, that's really cool." Same thing with the arcade. They're the least important photos, I believe. I just started doing them recently because I was like, man, I don't want too many photos, right? I don't want to drown out my guests with, 50 photos for a 2-bedroom, right? But what I did start seeing is that a few of those really show that you pay attention to detail, and those detail shots then reflect that the host is detail oriented, and people love that. If you looked at that checklist that I gave you guys, there's going to be variants of every room. Okay, I can walk into a room sometimes and I can tell you where the hero shot's going to be and how to shoot it. And other times I get photos back from photographers and I'm like, damn, this is a great angle that I never looked at. Okay, you won't know because there's so many variables inside of curtains being opened or being shut. You have different types of lighting. You have lights that come from fans. You have lights that come from, your neon lights. You have lighting that comes in from your photography. It will change the whole room. So in this photo right here, what I really wanted to show you guys is that it's the exact same angle and it's the exact same front room. And the only difference is the curtains are open and shut. And the difference in this photo, okay? So you want to take the time to keep shooting in different variations because I can't tell you which one. Sometimes curtains look better shut. Sometimes they look better open. It depends on if you have a trash can outside that window, that's maybe not the time to have the curtains open, right? So we want to make sure that we have those different variations when it comes to lighting especially. Showcasing the room size and the flow is very, very simple. You guys, any photographer can really get you that part and that piece, but we want to also make sure that we're not disclaiming how important those are, and being able to shoot from all 4 corners of a room and not just from the door. Capturing the appliances and the cleaning supplies is super essential. Okay, this is one of those factual photos that we're looking for. Is that there's other better photos of this kitchen, but I'm trying to show you that it has a washer and dryer, okay, without just having a super boring photo. Okay, so how many different facts can you get into a photo that also look really cool is kind of the key to that sauce, right? Because we don't want we don't want just pictures of just a blow dryer and pictures just of a washer and dryer and pictures of just factual things. How can we incorporate that into photos to where the guest sees it, but we're not shoving it in their face that, hey, we just want to show you that we have a washer and dryer. Set the mood with lighting and props. Lighting, again, to me is the essential part of great photography. And making sure those props are in the photos. You can have a pool table, but if you don't have, utilize the pool balls and utilize the pool sticks to really create that experience of like, oh man, I can really just go pick that up and go start playing when I get there, right? It's going to evoke that. The lighting makes the money. I can go into an Airbnb that has terrible lighting and I can change the lighting in there and take new photography, and I'll guarantee that I'll get more bookings on that. This is a perfect example of that. This is the duplex out in Arvada. I mean, they don't even look like the same room, I don't think. The only difference between these 2 photos is that one light, the Cushcations light, is the only difference between all of that. And so I would bet that if you ran an A/B testing on here, which one do you guys think will get more bookings? I think so too. And so this is the importance of lighting, is just that one sign that creates the whole vibe of that front room. And it also creates that pattern break. What does bad lighting say about you? This is a photo of a property that I have in Cherry Creek. It has terrible lighting throughout. It's an apartment, so I don't have a lot of control over it. And balancing that lighting is really hard to do over there without doing fake lighting. Right here in this photo, you can see that the light bulb under the desk is a different type of light bulb than in the kitchen. And so it creates this weird depth perception that it makes that room over there look green. So what bad lighting says about you is that you really don't care. It says that your attention to detail, when you looked at those photos, didn't want to spend the money to go change out the light bulbs and make sure that all the light bulbs were either extra white or soft or the same fluent color throughout the whole property, or at least in the same room. If you can't change the light bulbs for everything, for the whole house to match, at least try to match them in the same room, please. Create Instagrammable photos. Instagrammable photos are going to be something that somebody wants to go take a photo in front of in your space and then post it on Instagram. Okay? That's how we buy. We all buy in America and across the world off of, can I imagine myself there and what kind of photo can I take there? Okay? So right here, these neon angel wings have nothing to do with lighting and functionality. All it is a prop for someone to go take a photo at, okay? Close-up features. Close-up features are important because sometimes when you have space, like game rooms and garages, there's so much going on that you're not able to really highlight a section. And in this game room right here, I have a biking station for mountain bikers where you can hang up your mountain bike. I have tools. You can fit about 6 bikes in the bike rack because this property in Grand Junction is close to a lot of biking trails and a couple marathons where they actually are triathlons or those things where they ride the bikes and run and swim. Triathlons. So I have a lot of people who come through with their own mountain bikes to do that, and now I'm able to give them a space to actually store and work on those bikes. Don't overlook the ability to get sponsors for your Airbnbs. I've worked with sponsors from cannabis companies. I've worked with a whiskey company, Art of the Spirit. I had a whole whiskey unit for about 3 years in downtown Denver. It's one of my favorites. I drink whiskey. That's my spirit of choice. And so what I did is I went and spoke to this whiskey company. I said, hey, man, you guys have any empty barrels? I wanted to buy an empty whiskey barrel. And they told me the price of an empty whiskey barrel. And I was like, no. I said, I want it empty. And they said, no, they're as empty. They're still $1,000. And I said, oh, never mind then. And so I converted that conversation to a sponsorship conversation where I would be able to put some of their bottles, their empty bottles, and use them as lighting and other artwork. And also they had these tin signs that I was able to use as part of the decor for that property. And they gave me the whiskey barrel, and I also had flyers and stuff like that to try to help with the promotion of their tours of their distillery. And so with that, I was able to get a bunch of free stuff to help decorate this whiskey unit. So if you do that and you do get a sponsor, let's make sure that we get those photos so that we can actually promote that sponsor, right? Even if they don't book with you, maybe they do, a traveler does come to Denver and says, I didn't book that whiskey Airbnb, but I do remember that whiskey and that distillery, so I'm gonna go stop by there for a tour, okay? We want to be able to also, you could tell people how close you are to things, but when you show them through a photo, they'll understand it right away. So this is a collage that I had for downtown Denver. My property was right by Union Station, 5 of them. And so I wanted to show how location was so important to that property. That was the winner. I didn't have a hot tub. I didn't have a game room. I didn't have any of these things. I had location. I had walkability, okay? And so you want to be able to, how do you translate that without just having all these different little bullet points? You want to convey that in a photo. Like I said, walkability and amenities. That's how you can also translate these. Everything that you could put in a word, you can translate to a photo. And that's what I recommend. When you have your listing and you're reading down it, if you can read it, how can you translate that into a photo, right? I think my laptop might have died. Vinny. Yeah. So that photo up there is the photo of a park that was down the street from my Park Hill duplex. I had a property in Park Hill, and right down the street, I had a jungle gym. I had a little rec center that I really started promoting to people because my core guest was families. Okay, I had playpens in there. I had board games, and so what was important to them was being able to, how do I get them out of this smaller house that had no backyard, out somewhere a block down to be able to play at this park and not have everybody feel so cramped up, right? So, how can I use my disadvantages and my advantages and be able to correlate that into photos, right? We don't want to photo our disadvantages. We want to photo all of our assets of being able to combat those things of lack of a backyard. I have a park down the street. It's a small house. I have a big backyard, okay? I don't have a hot tub or game room or any fun stuff, but I'm walking distance to all the restaurants and all the fun stuff that you can do, okay? The next slide after that is going to be about cleanliness, and that's a topic that was really big during COVID, and that's when I started doing that transition, where people really wanted to understand what kind of supplies do you use. Do you use the all natural stuff, especially in Boulder? A lot of listings in Boulder, you will see that they use these all natural products. And people really tend to go towards that because if they have kids, they don't want their kids chomping on Fabuloso and Clorox all the time.
How many people own Airbnb in here? How many people? I was thinking about these pictures up, in the co-living, like how, like we do actually, how are we marketing shitty pictures? We're all in the same price range. Quick with my iPhone real quick. Trying to run out the house. Showing me the dishes over here. So you can use it in like
It's true. I think that
even on my wholesaling or like on a wholesaling too, like your
pictures are super
like the way that he's saying, like you got that to create
Marketing,
that vibe.
it's good marketing.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to reach, right?
It is.
Trying to reach.
And so, when it comes to the wholesaling, that's a really good point that I didn't bring up during this class, but I've also seen that. I know that Bobby for a fact knows this move when you just snag up a property that's in distress, clean it, really declutter it, throw a bunch of trash, get it cleaned up, and take really good photos. I mean, you don't even have to list it on the MLS at that point because you're able to convey a whole different property by just cleaning it and taking the right photos and be able to show the next investor how easy it is to turn that into a profitable property. Walkability, I don't know if you guys know there's a such thing as a walking score. And so every property you can go online and check out the walking score. And that's going to give you a couple things about how walkable it is, how close it is to restaurants, how close it is to schools, and different things. So that's free. Just go on to Google, type in walking score, and then type in your address in there, and it's going to show it to you. If you have a really bad walkability score, don't put it in your listing. But if it's good, if it's above 75, or it really is dependent on what the other listings have. As far as in a walking score too, sometimes like a 65 could be good, depending on like if you're in a rural area, right?
Are you gonna show highlight like how close the nearest bus stop is?
I don't, but the walking score will show you a lot of what goes. The walking score is based off of how walkable it is to grocery stores and to restaurants and events and event spaces and stuff like that. It does have a score, I think, for transit. And it will tell you that score right there. So it's a 48 over on that property. And that's going to be like what he said, the bus stops. Is there a light rail nearby? How accessible is it with Uber? Is there e-bikes around there? Stuff like that, okay? This is the O2 deodorizer right here. This is something that I always show in my 420 friendly property because this is how I take out of any dog smell or marijuana smell that might be lingering from the last guest. And so this builds trust and confidence that when you book one of my properties, just because it's a 420 friendly doesn't mean that it's going to smell like marijuana. The same way that if I let you drink alcohol in my property, you shouldn't, or have pets in my property, you shouldn't be able to smell any of that either, right? And so having this machine out there, people don't even know it exists, and having that photo in there is super important to build that trust. Floor plans are overlooked. The reason floor plans are overlooked is because they're not sexy, but when you have properties that are large properties, people want to see, is my room going to be next to the kids' room? You know, who am I, what wall is being divided between me and the room next to us? What does that privacy look like, right? And sometimes if you don't paint that picture, or it's really hard to paint that picture through your photo gallery of how that property is orientated, a floor plan will solve that problem for you. Also, the floor plan is super important too for operation reasons, okay? I always recommend getting a floor plan right when you get your photo, right when you get a property, so you have all the measurements, and if you have to replace a couch, you know how big you can go. If you need to get new curtains, you know how wide they need to be and how long that rod needs to go. So these floor plans are also very functional, being able to run that Airbnb business remotely. So today I've taught you guys a lot about pictures, okay? But now that's just enough to get you guys in trouble with a photographer and hire and fire the right one. So now, Vince, how do I hire and fire the right photographer? Oh, this slide's really hard to read. The interview process. The interview process, I know a lot of times people just go, oh, I love the way this person takes photos. I'm going to hire them for my Airbnb photos. That is not a good way to hire photographers. Every photographer has a different superpower, and they also are going to have their own interpretation of your property and what they want to be perceived as. And so you want to interview these photographers for several different reasons. One, you want to make sure that they have the capability of doing the right photos for you. They have the right equipment. They have the same vision, and they have the right patience. If you have a photographer that doesn't have patience and they're very set on, hey, I'll be in there for an hour and I charge by the hour and it's photo shoot for a 3-bedroom should only take an hour, that's the wrong photographer for you, okay? You need to have a photographer that is willing to have the patience to let you coach them through that process to make sure that you're getting the right photos that you want for the right guest, okay? In that interview process, I have some, I didn't put them on the slide, but I have them in that handout for you guys. There's some key questions that you want to ask this photographer to make sure that you're hiring the right one. You want to be very clear on what you want. You want to bring examples, and you want to also be able to express who your key guest is that you want to attract, and be able to purvey that to that photographer, okay? They don't know your business. They don't know if you're attracting business travelers, or if you want to attract families, or if you're trying to attract bachelor parties, or what you're looking for, okay? You want to make sure that they're capable and willing to do the job, of course, as we went over as well. And then you want to give them the right tools. This checklist is one of those tools. This is a very important asset. You guys are the first group that I've ever shared this document with, that I've been building over the past 7-8 years now. I keep adding to it every year as the marketing environment changes. And I also learn from every photographer. I have properties in 4 different cities. So for me, I have to work with different photographers every time. Vinny is one of my photographers that I work with out here in Denver. And even though me and Vinny have worked on a lot of projects together, we still use this checklist every time, okay? And so if you want to scale and go outside of your local market, you really need to have these types of assets to be able to train a different photographer for a different city. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you have a feedback loop. Okay, this feedback loop is going to be basically you describing to the photographer what you want. They take a photo, you look at it, and then you tell them, no, I need to make sure we encompass this chair as well. I need to make sure that, oh shoot, I forgot to turn off the ceiling fan, right? You don't want to have that ceiling fan rotating while you take that picture, and now you just have this big blur on the ceiling, okay? Pro tips for photographers, always use HDR if possible. HDR photos are when you layer photos, okay? They're gonna take this picture with different exposure, and it's gonna give that real brightness, and that's a way that you can capture the inside of a property and what's outside, okay? So when you see those pictures I have when I see outside the window, you have to be able to take multiple photos and overlay them. So if your photographer doesn't know what an HDR photo is, that's not the right photographer for you. Shoot from every corner. Like I said, I know that you walk into a room and you think this is the best angle, but you want to make sure that you have those different angles for functionality. Okay, does that room have a bathroom or not? Right? How do I know if that's the master? Okay, if you take it from take the photo from the other corner, you can see the bathroom, and that's going to be not the best photo, but it's going to be able to show it in the background. Okay. Vary the shot heights, okay? This is a photo right here that I wanted to show you guys. It's shot from a really, really weird angle. This is a corner unit that I had in downtown Denver at the Verve. I don't know if it's called the Verve anymore, but this unit was very, very, most corner units are 2 bedrooms. This was a 1-bedroom corner unit, so it was very, very maze-like to get into and small. So we would shoot photos from really up high, which was very, very unconventional for most photographers. They're like, that's weird, right? But until I took that photo, I realized, oh man, it's actually a really good photo. And this is also a HDR layering, so you can see outside and see the view of downtown as well. And then creativity. Let your photographer be the photographer, okay? We're coaching, we're not playing. We want to make sure that we're learning from our photographers, and that's how I've compiled this list as well. As each photographer I work with, I let them have that creative ability to say, hey, go do whatever photos you want now. What do you see? Because when you set up and design an Airbnb, you kind of get stuck into your own blinders, and you want to have that outside opinion from a photographer of maybe this is a better angle, or maybe we should actually highlight this because this is really, really cool. I've never seen this before. This is another example. This is an example of shooting from every angle, guys. So the best photo here is actually the bottom photo because it highlights everything that you need to know. It has a TV. The photo is bigger than this too. It's just the PowerPoint, but it has a TV, has the window, has a great view, and it has a king-size bed. That's all you need to know about that room in there. The reason the other angle works is that it shows the master bathroom. Okay, it shows that this is whoever's booking, that they're going to want this room. Okay, because it has the master bath. And this also is showing that the difference between either variable of just having a door open or door shut. Okay, you guys can't see it because the PowerPoint cut it off a little bit, but this is the same angle, but this has the door shut and the other one has the door open, and it looks terrible because it just shows an open door and a hallway. And what you're doing is you're taking away the person's focus away from what's important, and that's going to be like the bed, the artwork, the lighting, and stuff like that. So we don't want to just have open doors unless it's actually showing a purpose of like a bathroom or something like that. So I will shoot the same angle with the doors shut and the doors open and see what that looks like coming back. This is another example of different angles. This is a penthouse that I had in downtown Denver by Union Station, and I was really playing around with different angles because it was really hard to show how big that penthouse was from a typical about 4-foot view. Okay, it gave a lot of length and depth, but it didn't really show all the detail that I wanted to. So we used to play with different angles. This left photo up here is shot from 7 foot high, and the photo from the right is probably like a foot off the ground. Okay, so we're so used to real estate photos being at the same height all the way through. This is going to create that pattern interruption, and this is also going to just give it a little bit different. You know, no one's living here. People are coming here for the weekend. This is a great example of creativity and trying new ideas. Okay, guys. This is the water is running in the sink right here, a property, my Grand Junction property, and I would have never have thought to turn that thing on. And I had a photographer who came in and turned on the sink and took a picture, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I do it with my hot tubs all the time, and I was like, why don't I not doing it with my sinks? So that is a new one that I just learned about 2 years ago. Post-production and formatting is super important, guys. Your photographer doesn't know about your PMS system or what dimensions Airbnb likes or what kind of format that you need it in. If you need a JPEG, a vector, they might send it to you in a PDF, then you're screwed, right? So you want to make sure that you know what formatting your PMS system has and what dimensions that you're looking for. If the photo is too small and you try to blow that thing up, it's going to be really, really fuzzy, guys. So make sure you capture that. All it does is a quick Google search. And if you're posting on social media, that's going to be a different dimension. So let's make sure that we know what we're looking for and get the right deliverables from the photographer. Erase cords. I always ask my photographers to erase the cords, lamp cords, extension cords, stuff like that. And I think that's really key to make a clean look. We don't want to have anything that takes away from the photo. Even if it's there in real life, I don't call it catfishing, only because I feel that no one really cares about that lamp cord, and they're going to say, oh, well, when I showed it to the property, the lamp cord was showing. So check to make sure that your photographer in that post-production can take those out, and if they're going to charge you extra, or if that's going to be included into the fee. Image collages. Like I said, Shaquan is great with that. His hero photo is always going to be a collage of his best parts of his properties, especially since he has large properties. He's able to showcase a game room and a backyard at the same time to really capture that attention and create that pattern interruption when people are scrolling. Choose the money maker, okay? You did all this and you have this big old checklist. You just did a 4.5-hour shoot with your photographer because it was your first time and you didn't know what you were doing, and you forgot to have the lights on this one or that one. The door wasn't open on this, and the fan was spinning on this photo, so you had to take a really long time to do it. Choosing that moneymaker is not only going to show the pattern interruption, but that photo needs to be different than what everybody else has, right? If you have a pool out here in Denver, Colorado, that can be your hero photo, and that's going to be a great photo. If you're in Arizona, probably not going to cause a pattern interruption because almost every property in Arizona has a pool, and they always make sure that's going to be the first one, okay? And most people can search that on a filter, okay? So what can you do? So market, where your market is at and where your property is at and what everybody else is doing is very dependent on what that money maker photo is going to be. And so we want to make sure we make that choice. This is a property in Cherry Creek. This is a shared pool with the whole building, but there's not very many properties that you can Airbnb in Denver that have a pool. So that's why this is one of the hero photos for this property. This is the penthouse over in downtown. This was one of the first photo shoots that I did where I started using rosé wine, trying to make sure that I have the right bottle and utilizing that and just kind of invoke a emotion for people to book, okay? I hope that today everybody learned how important photos are. Not only in your Airbnb business, but in your normal business. People are going to buy off those photos. People are going to make life decisions based off of photography, okay? And that is why a photo is worth 1,000 bookings. You can use this photo over and over and over. The hot tub will break. Glasses will break. The game room supply stuff will break and you'll have to buy it again, and that's going to change your ROI. But these photos can last the entire lifespan of your booking, okay? So it's very, very important that you guys take the time out to, when you think about marketing, think about the power of pictures. Anybody have any questions?
How many could be too much
Too much to take or too much for a listing?
for a listing?
Too much for a listing. I go off of size, okay? I have a casita in Albuquerque that only has 12 photos, and to get 12 photos was really, really hard. My casita is about 500 photos or 500 square feet. And so to be able to not give the same photo over and over and over was really, really tough. And that's when I really started using accent photos, kind of like this one, to start invoke emotion, because I needed more photos. Because if you have less than 9 photos on Airbnb, it's going to hurt you in the algorithm. Okay, they think that you're not taking the time, that you don't really care. Okay, so that was an example of something that was really hard to do, a very small space to get to 12, to get over that 9 mark. And I have a duplex in Albuquerque. Both sides is like almost 2,000 square feet. I got game rooms. I got pocket doors with, secret passages and all types of cool stuff. I have 50 photos on there. Okay, it's a lot. But to me, I really only have 25. Because I have 25 on one side and 25 on the other, pretty much, right? So it seems like a lot, and most people don't even get all the way through, and that's why making sure that you collage photos is important and grouping them together. And then I also had to understand, hey, this is really 2 properties put together, so 50 is not excessive. But what I would say on a normal house, 20 to 30 photos, I think is a good sweet spot. I think if you can get that 20, 25, I think that's enough that people will go through. After that, I think people get bored.
Okay. My second question is, do you have any recommendations of photographers out here?
Out here in Denver, my guy Vinny. Vinny is a great photographer, and I've trained him in this space. He's a great photographer in his own right. And when it comes to the short-term rental, I was the first one that he shot. There are other photographers in Denver that I've used a lot, because I train them up and then they go and do great, amazing things. I have photographers that I worked with in 2017 that shoot movies for National Geographic now. And so I think I saw the good raw talent, and they travel the world. So that's the other reason you have to keep being able to coach and train photographers in this business, is because they are not looking to shoot Airbnbs the rest of their lives, right? A lot of photographers have bigger dreams to shoot movies and to, shoot these models and the more sexier things that they want to do, or they like to travel, And so those are the things that I had to realize that I can't just work with the same photographer every time as if I was doing a fix and flip and I work with the same tile guy every time. Right? So I don't have to train a new tile guy all the time. There's a little more consistency, So I would recommend Vinny. The rest of the photographers in Denver that I know of, they're not even in Denver hardly anymore, And so they're shooting restaurants and a lot of movies, which is crazy to me. So I actually called one of my photographers up one time that shot The Verve, and I was like, hey, it was about 6 months after he shot it. I said, I got another property. Can you come shoot it? And he's like, I'm in Africa right now. And I was like, he's like, yeah, I'm shooting a documentary on people building churches out here and providing water. And he's like, all right. And I was like, well, when you're back in town, can you shoot it? He's like, no. So he also made videos for my properties as well. I got into the game really early. There was no way to market those, but they are on YouTube. And so I would make videos for every Airbnb that I had to showcase all those things. Now things have caught up with direct bookings a lot more, and people trust direct bookings and direct websites. So now you can post them on there. So I do recommend that as well. That would be a different class. Go ahead.
How would you post a video on Airbnb? Because I've seen like QR codes.
Yes, exactly. So QR codes, if you look at that checklist, there's also other things that you can post in your photo reel, as far as in like your website. We could watermark photos, those types of things, to try to drive that direct booking. What I used to do is I used to put it, I used to tell them my company name, and I had a YouTube channel, so that they could see all of my properties. And then QR codes got a lot more popular over the past couple of years, to be able to do that and send customers directly there. So yeah, and then even if you're not getting, my thing was, even if I wasn't using that video right away because I couldn't link it through Airbnb or Booking.com, was to have it so that when I do have my own website, then now that I don't have to go back and reshoot right? So it's easier to get the video and the photos all done at once. And then even if you're not using that video until you get to like property 4 or 5, because your personal booking website doesn't really make sense until you get to about that 5 point, to the amount of effort that it takes to, I think, to get in there. So I like to have those videos already. Anything else? Any other questions?
One more question.
Yeah.
So, these photos are specifically for the short-term rental space. How important would you say having these photos is for, let's say, a midterm rental? You're attracting like traveling nurses, traveling professionals.
I think it's very similar.
Same?
I think the style of photo might be different, but photo, no matter the customer journey for any type of rental or short-term rental is going to be the same. They're going to see the photos first and your title, right? And so if you're going to shared living, if you're going to midterm rental, whatever it is, it's the same concept, right? You're attracting a different guest. So what I do on my midterm rental, especially traveling nurses, is comfortability. How do I show comfortability in my space? They're not looking at cool, have a fun time and stuff like that. They want to relax and be comfortable, right? And I do that with the operation side of things, better beds, better pillows. Nurses love caffeine. And so, I really focus on coffee bars and stuff like that. But those are those key points right there. It's not about how fun it is, And then, location for those people too as well, because they do want to be closer to grocery stores and stuff like that. So how do you get that through your photos? Because that's really your own marketing. By the time nobody reads your bio or your listing until after they've been excited about your photos.
In the meantime, they don't even read my dang listing.
They don't.
They just say, yeah.
They don't. They don't. So if it's not in the photo, it doesn't exist. Bobby?
What about the curb appeal? I didn't see any.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I am, it's controversial with me. I do not take pictures of the outside of my properties on Airbnb. I think that if I do take them, it's for functionability for check-in process, right? How are you going to check in? I have maybe a backdoor entrance or a casita of some sort. And I would have that when they book to help them, guide them to get to that space. If I have a backdoor entrance for a property, and how do these people get that journey to get to the door and check in properly, right? I think those are very helpful. I don't like to post outside of my building, my properties. One, a lot of my properties, because I'm a real estate investor, are going to be pushed together. They're going to be duplexes. They're going to be part of townhomes. They're going to be, how do I get the cheapest property and have the best experience, right? So I don't want to scare anybody off by them saying, oh, it's a townhome and not an actual house. Yes, it's listed as that, right? But I don't need to show them that. The bigger concern that I have is people looking at my property and going, that's my neighbor's house. That's the house down the street, right? I particularly just don't want anybody to know about my property, where it's located, unless they're booking. There's a reason that on Airbnb you don't get the address until after you book, right? And so, I don't see any value in posting the outside of your property. You might be able to argue that in a very small niche area if maybe your property was a ranch and you had farm animals, or you had this luxury space and you're sitting on 5 acres and you had a forest next to you, or you had a glamping setting, right? Okay, I get that, right? But for the properties that I have, the outside of this building downtown just gets other investors to try to open up Airbnbs in there, which has had happened in the past. And it just, to me, can lead to fraud, so I don't do that. And if you do that, I recommend that you at least blur the address, because I think people have posted the front of their property before with their address on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why, Bobby. Any other questions?
How often do you get your photos refreshed? Is this kind of like a one and done thing, or you take photos for each season, maybe every so couple of years?
So in that checklist, you will also see seasonality photos. I love seasonality photos for a couple different style properties. If you have a mountain property, it's a must-have, okay? Because I am not going to book your property if I'm going to go snowboarding up in Aspen if I don't see snow. right? I want to see that. And that's another time of like booking the outside of your property, right? And so seasonality of that backyard, you know, hot tub, snow falling, and then you would make sure you switched out those photos at the end of the summer so that we're a booking window for the winter, right? I mean,
I see why it would work.
Yeah.
See it,
Yeah.
see it, but
So my downtown properties, what I used to do is I would have a picture of the stadiums because I was walkable to Coors Field, to Invesco, take the train, Pepsi Center and stuff like that. So what I used to do is about 3 months prior to that season starting off, I'd get a lot of people coming in for games. And so I'd post that one up inside of that album reel. And then every 3 months I would just switch them out for that. Because people are going Rockies games. As soon as they see that, they're like, oh my God, this must be close to the stadium. This must be something that I want, right? They're looking for recognition of some sort, okay? So seasonality on certain properties is super important if you have that. Albuquerque, don't really got that. It's hot and it doesn't really show anything different, right? And then I'm a victim of taking photos twice sometimes, only because sometimes I start a project and it's not at the full capability that I want. I get into projects sometimes and I don't have enough money for the whole vision. So I have a lot of times opened up properties, got it up and running in 3 weeks, and to get the cash flow going, use that cash flow then to remodel the backyard or to add a hot tub or something like that. And then I have to go back and take those photos again, okay? The duplex out in Albuquerque is a perfect example. I'm going back to take secondary photos because there was a lot of items that weren't done for me, right? To everybody else, it was beautiful. It was great. They booked it. It's going great. But there's just these other things that I want to do to the property to really keep pushing the level because every year this space gets more and more competitive, okay? And I've seen that personally from being in different markets. I've watched me be the coolest Airbnb in that city, and I've watched people catch up, you know? So photos are ideally you like to take them once, and they should be lasting forever because if you have the right operation system, if something does break, it should be replaced with a like or kind item, right? I don't like to buy products from vendors where that product can be easily not available anymore. Other questions?
Yeah, I got more.
Man, I'm here all day. Let's go. Let's put the class
There's
for.
a slide on there with the locations and like the proximity
Mhm.
from your property to that location.
Mhm.
How did you make that?
It's my top secret person.
Hire someone on Fiverr?
I have a VA. I had a VA at that time too. I have a new VA that didn't create that one, but yeah, Fiverr is a great spot to do it at. I wouldn't pay more than $15. And the best way to do that is that you should have a top 5 of every item that would be relevant to your property, right? For this property specifically. So that map he's talking about is for this property. And I also had top 5 restaurants, fine dining, top 5 burger places, top 5 taco spots, top 5 event centers, top 5 late night places to eat, right? Because we need to know where to eat at 10, 11 o'clock. It's not gonna be the same list. Grocery stores, dispensaries, liquor stores, all those things I had a top 5 for in my guest booklet. And so what I would do is I would send that same sheet over to the VA or somebody on Fiverr and say, can you create a map out of this, right? Also in all my listings, I show the distance of where I'm at from everything. So I always go like 0.5 miles from, or I use time actually, 3-minute walk Pepsi Center, 5-minute walk Coors Field, right? And so if you're able to have those types of lists built already, it's so much easier to send that over to somebody on Fiverr and get it done for $15.
Do you consult, like do consulting for this? Like somebody want to just kind of hire you to, you know?
I do. I do. Thanks, Bobby. I do consult. That's actually how I get into other markets. I consulted for 2 different companies out in Albuquerque and didn't realize the growth that was going on out there. And in that process of consulting, I had to learn everything about Albuquerque and that market in general. And so after about a year of consulting, I realized that I wanted to be out there. And so I waited until they're about to pass legal recreational marijuana. And I said, if they pass that, I'm going to go down there and open up a property. So they passed the law in June. I was opened by Balloon Fiesta, which is the second largest gathering of hot air balloons in the world. And I was up and running by that festival, which is in October, before they even had a dispensary open. And so consulting is also how I get partnerships. Sometimes I go in and I go to consult and I go, hey, I really can consult for you, but I'd actually really want to be part of this deal, right? So yeah, if you guys need help, let me know. Other questions?
What's the price for the consulting? Is that like a flat fee? Is that hourly? Talk a little bit more about that.
So for the consulting, it's gonna most likely be on what the needs are. It's kind of a la carte. I actually decline more consulting projects than I do accept them, only because I have 100% success rate in my consulting, because if I feel that that person is not actually going to fulfill and actually be in this business long term, or actually put in the effort into a property, I'll miss out on it. I make my money through my Airbnbs. The consulting is a bonus, and it's also just a way to guard my time. But my consulting is anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. If I have to travel out of state and go see the property a couple times and stuff like that, then of course it costs more. And also that consulting is a lifetime thing. Everybody I've consulted for are now either a business partner of mine or part of one of my Airbnb or short-term rental organizations. And we're just still friends today. So people who paid me to consult during COVID times was where I had a lot of them at. I still talk to them all the time. And as everything grows and continues to change, there's no I'm not a guru. There's no upsells and now you got to buy this and that. It's like whatever. When I have a new template or I update my photo checklist, anybody I've consulted for before gets that new one. It's just, to me, it's just a community, because I learned from there's a lot of people that I opened up Airbnbs with or consulted for or has worked with, and they've outgrown me. I believe that Shaquan had 4 Airbnbs when we did our first one together. How many do you have now? 30 Airbnbs. So, to me, it's just a helping hand for me with somebody that I end up partnering with again, and continue to partner with, bouncing out ideas and learning different perspectives.
Back to the photography, what should be a reasonable photography budget? What's too cheap versus what's too expensive?
If you can, the easier you can make someone's job, the cheaper you can get it for. That comes to cleaning, that comes to photography, right? Providing them with the right tools. And so $600 is like a good medium price, okay? I gotten photography done for $300 all the way up to $800. $600 I think is a pretty reasonable price, especially because I pay on the higher side because I know how important it is, and I know that I'm picky.
Does that 600 usually include video as well?
Does not. Does not. Back in the day, it did. when I had this property, I got that property videoed and photographed for that much. And so if you had a little casita or a 1-bedroom apartment, and you were really on a tight budget, you could take iPhone photos if you really take the steps to learn it, like I did. I did a lot of my photos in the beginning were iPhone photography, because especially when that wide lens came out, because I needed to get photos up right away. And so sometimes what I would do is I would take photos and put them up online, start getting bookings, and then generate that. So $600 is where I would be at. If you have a smaller property, you could probably negotiate a lot farther down, because you're not taking as many photos, but some of these properties are really big.
Did you edit the iPhone photos, or you just
I'd put an HDR filter on it, was what it was, and that's just the best I got. But yeah, wide angle lens, and I think it just depends on the asset, right? When I was opening up 1-bedroom apartments for $7,000-8,000, the iPhone photos were just fine. Nowadays, when you're talking about putting $120,000 into a property, you know, pay the money for the right photos. Anybody else? Again, guys, I thank you for coming out. I know that this subject seemed like it wasn't going to be very important, but hopefully you guys got the point of how important photos are for any type of marketing, and especially in this real estate world.